All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Embracing a Paperless Approach. We've got a great panel here and a lot of good stuff to show everyone. Let's start with some introductions real quick. I'm Ed Zunzunegui. I work for QModo AI. I'm the head of customer success. We'll go around, let each person kind of introduce themselves. Joel, do you want to go next?
Hi, my name is Joe Weickert. I am the facilities manager at Maple Grove Hospital in Maple Grove, Minnesota.
Thank you, Joe. Dave?
Hello, I'm Dave Krings. I'm the Director of Energy Management at Michigan Tech University.
And Joel?
Thanks, Ed. Joel Isaacson, Senior Associate Athletic Director with Michigan Tech, and I handle and oversee our facilities in the Athletics and Recreation Department.
Great. And then Sam?
Morning, everyone. I'm the subject matter expert working with Jeff on construction and facilities management.
All right, and Jeff, I'll let you introduce yourself, and if you want to kind of get us started with talking a little bit about the challenges that the teams have faced. I know you worked with all of our panelists here, and we'll go from there, and we'll just keep it interactive.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks, Ed. Jeff Twardzik, original founder and president here at Q. Came out of the healthcare world. I did 11 years in healthcare as a facilities director, and that's really where Q came from, was all the pains that I saw in that space that we needed to fill the gap on getting the information to the guys in the field when they were doing their job. So along with that, which I saw then, I think back to sitting in my office and having one of the techs come through, and I would ask him, did you do the daily rounds today? And I'd get the, yep, all set. And for some reason, I left it at that, and that seemed to be okay in my head that was good enough. And honestly, didn't know what they did, what they looked at, what the results were, if something was going on, what are we going to do about it? Just trusted in what they were doing. And I mean, it worked out at the time, but there's this huge gap of, is everybody doing the same thing? Number one, are we in compliance with what we're doing, or be safe about what we're doing? And then can we look at the data and react to that to help our building out and the people that are in it? So as we focus on that piece of it today, I'm really excited to hear what Dave and Joel and Joe are using it for, and the things that they're doing today. The one thing I will bring up, Ed, is we were on a call earlier this morning just to kind of kick this off with CGL, one of our customers in the southern states. Southern states are getting freezing cold temperatures right now.
15 this morning in Atlanta.
Yeah, this morning in Atlanta.
Nothing for you guys up there, but for us, it's a very...
They're very professional about what they do, and they did the best job they could in getting ready for this. But it sounds like they missed one step in a lot of steps that needed to be done to get prepared for freezing temperatures there, and resulted in a pretty significant event. So as we were talking about that, how great would it be just to have a forum that I literally have never done this before. That form could have a video attached to it and how I'm supposed to do it, and a checklist. So at the end of it all, I feel extremely confident. I've done all of these things. I've checked the boxes, and I'm good to go for this freezing cold temperature happens every couple of years in Atlanta. So creating those forms is really easy in QModo and really easy to follow. So with that, Ed, I guess we'll open it up to the panel and talk about the things that we need to talk about.
Yeah, I want to touch with Joe because he, and you mentioned daily rounds, and I know that Joe, you share that pain, and that's one of the things that you wanted to be able to know. You didn't just want to take everything at its word that I did daily rounds. You wanted a little more data behind it. Can you share with us so what was some of your thinking along those lines?
So I worked under Jeff up in the UP for a short period, and the hospital I was at least had a daily rounds form that we would go do our checkoffs on. So then when I shared that with Jeff, right, that kind of started becoming a system approach from his director level on down. And that all worked well up there, at least having that paper form. As we brought QModo into Maple Grove Hospital and we started talking, right, what can QModo do for us? Well, we can get rid of that piece of paper and we can put it on QModo, and we have checks and balances, right, that the work got done, the meter reading got loaded, or they can attest that they did their rounds. And as I'm looking at it right now, so today I'm working on my Metropolitan Council water readings to tell the state of Minnesota how much water I brought in and how much I dumped down the drain. I can now go back to my daily round forms and pull them meter readings at that day, and then a meter reading for December 31st, and start doing my calculations a lot easier. As we're talking right now, I've already tasked Jerry with, right, how do we build me a report that then will just give me that at a click of a button. And for this year, I may still have to do some of that math, but moving forward, maybe this report and or form prints itself out annually for me to do my water reporting.
Yep, and for those who don't know Jerry, and Dave as well, I work with Jerry also. Jerry's on our customer success team and works with you as part of this to ensure you're getting everything you need out of the system.
Yeah, and Joe, I just real quick on the forms that you're talking about when you're talking about the meter reading, it's one of those things. And Dave, I know that you're working on getting some smart metering at Michigan Tech. But currently, you know, that might be segmented. Some buildings will have it, some buildings won't. Probably the best way to mitigate like a major amount of water going down the drain or a power fail, you know, that you don't see or whatever it is, usually it's water, is to know what that meter reading is daily. And if it all of a sudden is out of whack by hundreds or thousands of gallons, like something's leaking, right? I think, Dave, you and I talked about sometimes that's below the road, right? And I don't even know that it's happening. You know, it's not like I'm pouring out of a wall. The one example that I have, and again, this goes back to everybody's looking at the same thing. I can see a difference because I can see the data. When I was at Aspirus in Kuna, they had water-cooled compressors for the kitchen. And there was a $60 part that failed that let the water flow. It didn't return. It just flowed down the drain. So we had a 1/2-inch pipe 24/7 that just slammed water down the drain to the tune of, I think it was like $100K because it was going on for a year. You know, that nobody noticed that, but nobody knew to look at that, you know. So simple things like that can be seen and just save a ton of money, and really the sustainability initiative is helped big time. So, and then Joe, I think the other thing that you've talked about with the forums is onboarding new employees, right? You've got all the information there, the videos that are attached to it. What is this equipment doing? And then if something is out of parameters, what do I do about it? And then, you know, you're really empowering your employees with knowledge.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that, Jeff. And onboarding my newer employees has been much simpler, even from the old paper form. The old paper form kind of walked you through a room and what to do. QModo has amplified that. We know what room to go into, what exactly to look at, what the form wants put on it, and then they can sign off that room to move on to the next room.
Yep. Joel, the one thing that I think you're doing there that's unique too is you're going to start incorporating student help into this, right? And using these forms and being able to, I mean, there's no bigger turnover, I think, than student help at a university, right? You get them for a semester or a year, maybe at best, and then the next kid comes in and you have this cycle. So how do you see QModo helping you with that pain that you feel?
You know, I think the biggest thing for us, Jeff, is consistency. You know, I think the ability to be able to have our, and I'll use some specific terms to our facility, but we have our building mechanics, and then we have our student managers, which are the students that you're referring to. And, you know, they're potential engineers in the long run, and they have some on the job training, but really our building mechanics are the experts, and they're the ones that really take a lot of pride in what we have going on. And I don't want a big drop off when a student is working in the ice arena and they're doing their compressor checks, which is a real big key component to our department is that we maintain a ice plant, and it's got a consistent sheet of ice for our Division I hockey team. And I don't want a student coming in and missing something on a night reading, where our building mechanic would really want to know that information and that data. So consistency is the big word. And for me, and the ability that, hey, I'm not sure what I'm looking at, but then to pair that form with the video so that there's actually teaching that's going on and some knowledge. And I hear from our building mechanics that, it's not just about that visual reading, it's also like listening and kind of feeling that room of what's going on. So really kind of pairing that together. And this generation learns by video. They're on it every day. They learn in the classroom this way. So it's a real consistent way that they're able to apply and learn on the job. So that's the term I would use.
Yeah, I love it. That's good.
Yeah, no, Joel, that's a great point. That's what we see from a lot of our customers, is that consistency across different people doing any of those checks. It may be daily rounds, it may be boiler check, but you've got the consistency of you're following the same process. Another hospital we work with, same thing. That's what they wanted, because they forget how many daily rounds they do. They had probably like you, Joe, probably a dozen or so, but different people do them, but they wanted to make sure that each person was kind of hitting the same things. So no one person may be overlooking one thing, and that this gave them the opportunity to take paper, which everybody did a little bit differently, in ensuring that consistency into the application itself. Dave, let's get you into the mix. What are some of your thoughts along those lines of some of the forms that you've been thinking about?
Well, I think even though Joel and I are operating in the same organization, I've seen maybe the other end of the spectrum here with a couple of really experienced technicians that work in our utilities area, along with 4 operators that have been around quite a while too. And it's pretty common when you start to do things like this, where the experienced folks are, their frame of mind on it is, I don't need a form because I know what to do. And it's kind of an interesting challenge, but working with people planning and scheduling work for a long time, I find it kind of fun to get them all together in a room and say, okay, well, if that's the case, let's each take a sheet of paper and write out a procedure for how to wash a car. And we'll see which one of them has put the $10 bill in the car wash machine, and another one says, I use the 2-bucket method and I'm washing a 57 Chevrolet, and these Q-tips work great in the vents. It's amazing how big of a difference there is in a simple thing that you need to kind of define what you want. And as Joel explained on the ice plant over there are things that we need that are important, and those things got to get dealt with the right way, and people need to understand what they're doing. And what the forms have given us is a place to capture the best known way to do things. And then at that point, everyone can do it, and it doesn't take a person with a lot of experience if you can follow instructions, and we have a standard set within the organization that we do follow instructions. So it's making things much easier, and it's capturing things that we could lose very easily as people retire. So I find that very helpful.
Yeah, even what we were talking about briefly earlier, right, Dave? The changing over to oil from natural gas on the boilers, and I think people need to understand what Dave is doing, and the heat that he's dealing with is the entire campus of Michigan Tech. So if things go south there, everybody's feeling it all the way to Joel on top of the hill up there. People are not going to have the heat that they need, and things are going to go bad really quick, especially when it's temperatures like what we're feeling right now. We're sub-zero, so and again, even being down there and the time that I spend there, Joel, Dave, I hear just from my level different ways of doing things from every one of the people that I talk to in your space.
Yeah, for sure.
Not one being better than the other, maybe, and everybody has their own way, but it really should be the best way, right, and the safest way to do that. And then the one thing, and I know Ed has heard me say this a million times, and Sam too, is it's in the panic mode that you need to be able to lean on something and take a positive step forward. So when you're in that panic mode and the gas shuts off and I need to change to oil, I better do that right and do it quickly and get things moving and seamlessly, so there's not a big event. So
Jeff, if you don't mind, I can add to that, because we just got curtailed 2 days ago due to the weather, and my afternoon shift is a newer shift, or newer people, and had never done the curtailment and got the call, and went to QModo and looked up the video and went and flipped it over and then called me to make sure he wasn't missing anything. But it walked him as a newer engineer right through the process. And we were flipped over when needed to be for center point. And then the flip side happened yesterday, right? You're not curtailed anymore. You can go back to normal. Well, then he called me up. Well, am I under the same time restraint? I said, well, no. Hey, we can switch back whenever we want, but yes, oil's more expensive. So a little more work on our end to go in and maybe circle a full circle on that, what
Yeah.
switching to and then what's switching back look like. And then just to add to the forms, so we recently in our maintenance department took over the life safety portion of fire extinguisher checks because our security was doing it. And our regulatory company is now telling us, even though this code has always existed, we have to do them extinguishers no further than 31 days in a hospital setting. And that code's always kind of existed, but it's been gray area. Now the regulators are surveying to that. So it was brought back to our maintenance team, who has never done a fire extinguisher check in this building. And we created in QModo, before we even gave it to them, the process and what order I want to see it done in. And now QModo has set them up to go do that successfully across every engineer that may get appointed to do this. And as we all know, as they learn the system and do it long enough, they may come up with their own route. But what QModo's also helped me build into it is, yeah, you can go do your own route, but you can't sign off on that till everything's been touched. So checks and balances. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead, Sam.
I was just going to say to build on that, a lot of times the guys out in the field are dealing with interruptions. They get a call to go take a look at something that's going on somewhere else. And if they're in the middle of the form, it'll keep track of what was done and what was not done so that they can easily come back and pick up where they left off. But also, if it needs to get assigned to another tech, say you got to get that inspection done today, you can assign it to another tech and they can pick up right where the first tech left off.
Yeah, that's a great point, Sam, because that happens every single day. I used to laugh at everybody when they said, what's the plan for the day? When they would ask me that at, 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. And I'd be like, I don't know. I think I have a kind of an outline, but I don't know where this is heading. And I know Joel and Dave and Joe, you guys all know that no day is exactly how you plan it to be. So things just happen, right? So it's great to be able to come back and multiple people can do that too, Sam. Like if I started that, you can come around and you can end that for me if you need to, a daily round or whatever that might be. I think the other thing, and we're going to be pushing more of this off into you guys is we do custom forms for you guys for certain mechanical rooms at MGH or up at the ice arena or down, Dave, where you're sitting and all those. But there's also a lot of things out there that are more generic, hot work permit or above ceiling permit or a lockout tagout procedures and things like this that we can make available. And those are all paperwork things. And Joe, I mean, you and I are more on the same page just coming from the healthcare world. So I think about above ceiling permit and how often that was actually taken out by third party that came into my building or the guys that were doing work inside of my building that were on my team. It was not enough. They just took the moment and went up there and said, oh, I'm just gonna be here quick. It doesn't matter. Just imagine having that kind of a form sitting on your phone, being able to fill that out, sign it, and know that you're doing the right thing every time and be in compliance. So, Joe, I don't know if you want to expand on that a little bit. The healthcare, you're under a microscope.
Correct, and I again will agree with you from the UP way of doing it. Down here at Maple Grove, everybody fills out that form.
Yeah.
So it's rule and law in this building, but to your point, it's cumbersome. They've got to come to my office, get the form, fill out the form, go find the engineer to sign off the form, and then on the tail end of it, go find the engineer to go back up and check, make sure everything got done properly. So yes, I find a huge value in moving forward with that and hot work permits, right? Hot work permits, we've got to go back 30 minutes later and double check that we didn't have a fire or a spark, and that gets lost. So we haven't discussed what QModo can do for that 30-minute timer, but I'm imagining something.
Yeah. Some way to go. Yeah. Time to go back, right. And have that all bundled up in a neat form. And then also, you guys have all seen it on these different forms. There's always at the bottom of every one comments, and then the ability to add a video or a picture to that. So if I'm above a ceiling and I'm doing some work, I can take a picture, document what I'm looking at, or whatever that might be at the end of that form, if it's a daily rounds or if it's something going on at the ice arena. Joel, I could imagine one of those students being able to take a quick video that would be 30 seconds, that there's no way they can write that down on a piece of paper to express that to your building mechanics for the morning, right? So just being able to do that and have that at your fingertips is got to be helpful.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, doing your rounds and your checks is not just about the visual. And if you can share a video, it gives you that full perception of what actually is going on in the moment, and certain things have certain sounds, and our building mechanics pick up on it, and that, to replicate that with a text message is in black and white is impossible, versus the video. So, that's very powerful.
Yeah, that'd be a fun test for your guys to just have sound only, black screen. What do you think this is?
Yeah, knowing Tyler, he'd pick up on it. So
he know it's a bearing and X motor for sure.
For sure. I don't want to give away too many of his. I don't want to pump his tires too much because I don't want to lose him. But he's just really good with that stuff. So
sure.
Yeah, because we've heard a lot from different folks that, hey, depending on who you talk to, kind of doing those daily checks, they give it different priority. I think all of y'all have given that a high priority, because a lot of people will say, hey, my BMS checks all that. Well, the reality is it doesn't, right? And it can't right now. Maybe in some distant future, there'll be a building where everything can be monitored, but it's just the heartbeat of the buildings that you guys work in is really known by the people that work in them, right? And back to your point, Joel, getting that consistent view of that information gives them the chance to get to know the building and really understand that literal heartbeat. If something's going wrong, I kind of know it just from being the presence in there. So one of the things I wanted to touch base on is one of the things that we hear from folks time to time is, there's other systems that can do this. Our work order system can do this. And one of the things that we prided ourselves on is ease of use. That's something that I think Jeff, after he introduced himself to me, said it needs to be easy to use. And he's continued to say that throughout our engagement. What has been y'all's experience in using the app, whether it's in the iPad version or the phone version or the desktop version? Of course, we're biased and we've got some anecdotal data, but love to hear what your folks might be saying about it. If anybody wants to start.
I can start on that. Where you have made it easy to use, you've also kept your ears wide open when I come back to you and say they're finding this complicated. How do we make it easier? And you make that adjustment. So that's what I hear back, right? Boy, this process was slick, but then I talked to you, Joe, and then Joe reached out to QModo, and now the process is even easier. So hats off to QModo for always being adaptable that way, I guess, would be my take on it.
Awesome.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think having, Jerry's done a great job from the customer service standpoint, that he actually will walk with our staff as they do these rounds and these forms. And if the solution is more difficult than the problem, they're just going to push it aside. So really having that ability to make it ingrained in their workflow, where it's helping them do their job as the right tool should, really have that as an option. or they're, like I said, they're just going to push it aside and figure out the path of least resistance.
I would agree with that. And I I think one of the things that's really interesting is some of the other software that we use for tracking work orders and that sort of thing takes somewhat of a learning curve. There's some tips and tricks you have to learn to navigate around it. And if anything, I see a lot of surprise on the faces of our people using QModo, how easy it is. A lot of times after you show them how to do something, I say, it can't be that easy. I can just do what I need to do without having to know that you have to hit Shift F5 to do it, or whatever the case may be. And they just really like the ability to submit things into the system. And other than that one little moderation step we put in place before their videos can get posted, it's pretty much automatic, and they do a really good job. And people have been really professional about that as well. So, and Jerry's great. I'll second that as far as Joel's comment.
Well, and
Well, that's great to hear, but I don't know if we could pass that on or not.
yeah, he's going to see this recording, I'm sure. He might be even on the attendees list. So.
The other thing I also wanted to bring up is it was actually last evening, Lorien Village. I was invited to go talk at their council meeting. They're talking about putting QModo, and I think it's going to happen, into their fleet vehicles. So their graders and their sanders and all of that kind of stuff, and even the stuff that they use in the summertime, that few months that we can mow the lawn around here. But it continuously moves into whatever they want it to be. So a piece of equipment, it doesn't matter if it has 4 wheels on it, we can put QModo into it, add forms to that. So daily checklists, they're going to be able to scan a barcode on one of their fleet vehicles, go through whatever, I can right and left turn signals, I have brake lights, I've got 2 headlights, I check the oil, I did the things that I needed to do, and I do that every day. So if some event does happen, I can prove that I'm doing the right things and being safe as I possibly can. So as we move forward with QModo, I think there's a lot of those things that we're going to expand into. Ed, I know that you're closely working with Industrial IA and the like the bucket truck inspections and things that they're doing on that space. So not only the daily rounds and those kinds of things, we're expanding out into other things and putting our forms capability into those. So it's been pretty exciting.
Yeah, I can expand on that a little bit. So they're an inspection company. So they inspect everything from a fire truck to the bucket trucks you see servicing utilities nationwide. They're a nationwide company, and they did it all in Excel, right? And that became cumbersome because you're limited by some of the issues that Excel has in files. So we converted 60 plus of their reports and their forms into QModo to give them that ability, and they all use iPads, so they can literally walk around the truck as they're doing their inspection. And not all the inspections are the same. There's times where they have to do a quick inspection around the truck, or they'll do a very detailed one, and they have the flexibility, as you guys know, from selecting certain components, we can hide certain amounts of data and make that more efficient and quicker for them. And then we're working on integration with their back end, so the techs will get those work orders in, they'll know what to go inspect, and then the reports automatically, a PDF gets sent back to their back end system so they can bill quicker. So you can see a company like that getting to use the forms capability, making it as easy. Again, I've always said this, we want to make it as easy as possible to input the data, right? I think that's probably all of you have heard Jerry say that. How can we make it easier? And that's why he loves Joel and Dave and Joe walking around with the guys, because that's where you really experience it. If you can remove a click or 2 clicks in doing something, seems trivial, but it's not when you're doing it a lot of times. And for industrial, if you're trying to inspect 6 trucks in a day or 4 trucks in a day, and you've got all these checks to do, anything we can do can make them accelerate that entire process. So that's something we're excited that we're working with them kind of purely on that inspection piece. And it's opening the door. Everybody, Joe, you kind of led the way. A lot of the enhancements you and your team came up with have benefited everyone, and in the same way it's going to work. Some of the enhancements that we're doing for industrial will benefit all of y'all as you see that, even from the standpoint of just they have to go in and put NA a lot if they can't inspect it, just giving them an easy way to do that, right? So you're not having to type in NA. Wow, we can save them just one click, automatically puts it in. Little thing seems trivial, but if you're doing it hundreds of times, it's not trivial anymore, right? So we're always thinking about how can we make that input life simpler, but then give you guys, the managers, the information you need to manage all that content, and ensure that you're getting it.
Yeah, even one of the things I was working yesterday with a mechanical contractor, Ed, was, and Joe and Joel and Dave, we could talk about this more too, is as he's going around, say he's doing CS1 CSD1 testing on boilers annually in the state of Michigan, you have to do that. So having all the information about that boiler, where I am, and then all the pieces on there, you have to have information about low water cutoff and all of that all in there. There's a lot of pencil whipping that's happening through there. Like the majority of your time is actually filling out this form. So the ask was, can that all just self-populate? And absolutely it can, because when I scan the barcode on that particular boiler, it knows where I am, it knows who I am, it timestamps the date and time, and then it also knows the unit that I'm working on. So make, model, serial number, and everything else that's involved. So then all of a sudden that technician just gets to work and fills out the work that they needed to be done on that, and submit and be done. So that's one of the things that I think we're going to be doing more and more of, is whatever piece of equipment I'm going to fill out that form, populating all that to your point, Ed. I mean, we're just saving time there on these people doing that work. So, and the other thing is it's very accurate, right? I mean, there can easily be a clerical error that's involved with putting it on paper. So
If I can add to that a little bit, and right, for the sales pitch side of it. So we originally brought QModo into Maple Grove Hospital originally to video, as Jeff came in and Jerry came in and introduced me to other things it would do. The strongest selling point I had was take a picture of an asset tag and everything about that unit pops up. I have to go to this as my one selling point. I had an engineer, seasoned engineer, call me at home the other night. I got this problem with this piece of equipment. I don't quite know where to go. And I said, did you go click on the asset tag and bring up the OEM? Well, we can do that. I go, well, how easy you all forget. So he went right down, never heard back from him. Next day I come into work. The OEM explained to him exactly what he was looking for, what he needed to do. And then the parts list came up and told him exactly what part and part number he needed to order. And from an original standpoint to today, that is huge, and time saving, money saving, tech time, right? What part am I ordering? As we build into this more, we're talking about adding, right? What vendors do we go to then to get that part? So invaluable. So thank you.
well, thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you
That's
for
great.
sharing.
Sam, there's one thing, if you wouldn't mind spending a few moments. QModo is looking at really expanding into that safety world, and we can put all of that stuff in there, but we really want to have it, that all those forms and all of that information is right in there, and just kind of follow the template and keep you in compliance and everything else. So Sam, if you wouldn't mind expanding a little bit on where we're heading and how this forms and checklist capability could fit into that.
Sure. So, an underlying benefit of automating forms is improving your risk management posture so that you can be more compliant and you're documenting that compliance. So we started looking at the forms that people were creating and saying, gosh, this would be a good transfer over to a safety program. So I took a look at the overall safety program and its different components, and started thinking about the forms that we could build in QModo that would help with maintaining compliance and safety. So you've got everything from reporting hazards that are found. So we could create a form that allows any employee to get online, get on the app, and submit that hazard, and it could get routed to the safety team. And the safety team can then assign an action to have that hazard addressed, and then also follow up once the hazard has been addressed that it was done correctly. So, we can automate a form that would help with reporting hazards. Another area that we're looking at creating forms is to plan your work. Typically, you plan the work for the day, and then you do your job hazard analysis. From doing the job hazard analysis, you can then identify the different hazards that could be that the workers could be exposed to during their work that day, and then you can review with them the appropriate PPE, the actions to be taken if the exposure actually happened, and then also go over, did they get the proper training to do that work? So that's another form that we're looking at doing. And then finally, the other piece of this that only happens when that accident or injury happens is, what do I need to do to report and manage this incident? We can create a form for that says, okay, we've had a safety incident. All right, what type of incident is it? Is it an accident? Is it an injury? And then be able to go through the steps of helping the people involved document that incident. What data needs to be collected? We can also create a form that once that data has been collected and routed to the safety team, we can create the next form that talks about managing the recovery. What are the steps to take? But once the incidents happen, we've went ahead and taken our action, and then the follow-up investigation may need to be done, and then finally, closing out that incident. And one of the things that I think will be really helpful is creating a little template that helps with OSHA visits and inspections. What is your company's policy and procedure if OSHA comes on site? We can go ahead and document that into a form or checklist. And then when something happens that OSHA is required to come to the site, you'll now have that information available in front of you. Because a lot of times that safety manual is in a binder that's stored away in the facility manager's office. And when things are happening and people are scrambling, it's not always easy to find that binder if it hasn't been touched in a while. So we're looking to take the parts of the safety program and automate it using forms and checklists in QModo to make that compliance easier.
Question I would have from the hospital side on that. We already have safety first reporting. Most hospitals have something along them lines. Would QModo be able to integrate into that, or are you looking for QModo to take that over? And I ask that because safety first is such a broad brush from the safety standpoint, from a patient falling in their room to a visitor slipping out in the parking lot to what you brought up. I'm going to go work with something that's hazardous. What's my PPE? That is our reporting mechanism. So without you guys having to build everything from the ground up, do we more look at integrating into what we have to give us the ability to get to that easier from QModo?
Yeah, and Joe, I think you're nailing it, right? We don't want to go to that extent, right? That's a huge platform that they built that does a really good job in your building. But one thing that we talk about all the time is we want QModo to be that single pane of glass, right? We want you to be able to go to QModo and be able to get to anything you need to do in that building. So just having a simple link, because right now, if somebody does, they have a utility knife, they're cutting drywall and they rip into their left hand, right? And they get a big cut. To be able to just hit that link and what do I do now? And even for you, Joe, right? I mean, where do I go? And if it could just link me over to that and have the form available to me, I mean, that would probably be the best way to go.
Thank you.
All right, so I want to be mindful of everyone's time. I know we're getting close to the top of the hour here, so I thought we could just wrap up and give each Joel, Dave, and Joe just a little bit of time just to say if there's anything on the form side that we may have touched on it, but you want to highlight it, that you want to talk about as we wrap up here. we'd appreciate it, or just to see, there's you guys have all used it in different ways, but what's the one that kind of is the one that really you see truly benefiting you the most right now? Or it could be kind of the mixture of all of it, but just would love to kind of wrap up on that. And Dave, I'll pick on you to start.
Sure. One thing we recently started was a route-based kind of routine inspection form that we use with the building mechanics that are assigned to each of the buildings on campus. And for the buildings that have QModo installed in them right now, those reports are coming in fast and furious. The building mechanics are doing the checks and following the procedures, which is a great thing, but we've got the end result of those walkthroughs being piped to their zone managers so that they can review those and take a look at what they're finding. And what's come out of that is some of the work that they've identified has been in the system for quite some time, and this thing is floating it to the surface, and the forms make it so much easier for the zone managers to see where their building mechanics need a hand with something that they can't do on their own, or whatever the case may be. And I guess the other part of that, which I did mention, is we only have QModo in about half of the buildings on campus right now. And like many things like QModo, doing an install, there's always a little bit of a push to, do a trial or a pilot in one building. And that was the case here on campus at Michigan Tech too. And if I could walk myself back to the very beginning, I'd highly recommend working up front on getting the persuasion in place and the communication and justification for it to just pull the trigger and put it in all across the campus, because at this point we're halfway there and now the momentum is good, but I think it would have gone faster if we would have just pulled the trigger from the beginning and got everybody on the platform so they could communicate, support each other, and get more excited about it. So we're getting there, but it would have been easier the other way.
Yeah. Joel, how about you?
I think everything we've built, because my fingerprints have been in it with you guys, is working fantastically. If I have anything to bring up, it's the next new $1 million idea. We just recently took med gas tank back over in maintenance. So my team now has to go around every day and go to every par room and make sure we're set to par for the med gas that all the floors need, but more importantly, not going over that par level, because then that becomes a life safety issue with fire marshal and surveyors. So my next plan to work with you guys is, right, what's that form look like for med gas checks, and how do we, right, go into that room, make sure that room is to par. If it's not to par, how do we notate it? If they're under par and tanks disappeared, what mechanism do I put in place to reach out to that manager to say, hey, where did 2 of your grab and go oxygen tanks go? I know from a hospital it's a bigger deal, but I would even imagine a Michigan Tech's got med gas or gas tanks that need to be monitored and regulated. So that's my next new idea.
Yeah, which is a great one, right, Joe? I've been in charge of that before, and in a hospital setting, it's extremely important what you're doing there. I mean, you have people's lives on your hand. If I don't have oxygen for them, that's a really bad thing. No, excited to go forward with that. And then inside of that, talking about the linking, here's the link. This is exactly, you just hit this button and I can order them right now. Joel is the person you need to call for this department. Those are all the questions when you're going through there, when you're at tech, and that's part of your daily thing. I don't know who to call. I don't know where to order it from, and all of those things. So having that at your fingertips inside of the form, I think, is what's really making it powerful in Q.
Yep. Joel, anything to add to?
Yeah, taking a little different approach to answer this one, because I don't want to, echo what Joe and Dave highlighted. For me as a leader in our department, to me, I don't want to always be the one that has to answer questions. I want to give our employees the ability to be able to learn something, research it, and make an empowered decision based on their training that's either in their hand or the knowledge that Q provides. And sometimes I feel that, you almost fail as a leader if you're constantly having to answer the same question over and over and over in our facility. So for me, it's a quality of life piece. But when I'm not in the building, I want to be with my family. I want to be focused on what's going on, and I don't want to have to be constantly glued to my phone. So I think QModo in our facility is going to start to help to kind of give that, that quality of life balance back, because we are open 18 hours a day, and we're a heavily used facility. But I want to work my 8 and I want to go, and then let my staff kind of take care of what they have going on. So Q gives that power of leadership to be able to empower our employees to be able to to make good decisions, to learn, to train themselves on a way that they learn themselves, to kind of retain that information.
Perfect. No, what a great, we'll end it on that. It's a great way to put it. Well, Joel, Dave, and Joe, thank you very much for your time today. We appreciate it. You guys jumping on with us. And Sam and Jeff, thanks for adding commentary, and we appreciate everyone's time. Thank you very much for your insights on this topic.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
You're
gentlemen.
welcome. Thanks for having us.
Have a great day, everyone. Keep warm.
Take care.
Stay warm.
All right.